And just to introduce all of you to Jade Angelica. She is a Unitarian pastor in Iowa, and she's dedicated much of her ministry towards working with people with dementia and their caregivers. So it's a delight to have you with us. I heard Jade on the podcast called Dementia Untangled. And Dementia Untangled is a podcast from Banner Hospital. And they had a monthly podcast, and I would recommend that to anybody that is interested. I find podcasts to be a really, really helpful way to learn, because here you have undivided attention from a presenter who oftentimes has a lot of real valuable things to offer. So when I heard her, I thought immediately, I want this woman in my life. I want you to be a part of our ministry here. So I was delighted to be able to make contact with her, and we were able to do that. So thank you. So that's basically a short summary for Jade. I've handed out the flyer for things for the coming weeks and months. So on one side is that, and on the other side are the questions that Jade will want us to talk about later. So Jade, go ahead. Are you ready to go? Fire away.
I am ready to go, and I'm wondering if we could mute the Zoom room there, and anybody who's on Zoom, if you could mute.
That's Dave. Dave and Les.
I can get him.
Oh, okay. We're gonna mute you guys.
Get him.
All right. Thanks, Chad.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. So we're good.
Okay.
And do we do the room
Oh,
too?
Yeah, do the room too. Yeah, thank you. Perfect. So hello, everyone, and I welcome you to this presentation, Hope and Healing for Alzheimer's, Caregiving as a Spiritual Journey. I'm Jade, and it's so good to be here with you today, especially knowing that of us have our experiences as caregivers for loved ones living with Alzheimer's or a different form of dementia. What an honor it is for me to be here with you for your first meeting of the fall, sharing my story and some of the discoveries I made on my journey with my mom. My hope for our time together is that my discoveries will be informative and inspiring and helpful to you in some way. So I offer my thanks to Reverend Jerry for inviting me to be here with you today. And most of all, I thank you for being here to listen, to learn, and to grow. There's a resource, a textbook of sorts that accompanies this presentation, and it's my book that Jerry mentioned in his email. It just came out last October. It's called Where Two Worlds Touch: The Spirit and Science of Alzheimer's Caregiving. And it has much more detail about everything that I'm going to be sharing today. The book is available everywhere online or in bookstores. So if you happen to have a paper and pen handy, this could be useful during the program for an exercise we'll be doing, and to write down any questions that come up during my presentation so we can address them at the end during the question and answer session. So here we are sharing the screen, and let's begin. I have a friend, Sister Mary Owen. She is a Dominican sister who lives near me across the Mississippi River in Wisconsin. She's 80 something and she worked as a nurse for most of her career. She knows the statistics about Alzheimer's, that it affects 50% of the people over 85, and she's afraid she might get it. She's not alone. Studies have shown that Americans are more afraid of getting Alzheimer's than they are of dying. Mary Owen shared her fears with one of her sisters, who calmed my friend with this reply. If you had someone who understood the disease to give you really good care, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. As I was considering what this might mean for people with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia and their caregivers, I came across a quote from author Martha Beck that brought this sister statement into focus for me. In her book, Follow Your North Star, Beck wrote, "When frightened, all primates except humans will seek out a safe place. Humans will seek out a safe person." A safe person. Dr. Arthur Kleinman, psychiatrist and medical school professor, agrees with these observations about good care and safe persons. Through the lens of his own experience as a caregiver for his wife, Joan, who died from Alzheimer's, Kleinman identifies the most effective treatment intervention for people living with Alzheimer's and dementia and their families as caregiving and hope. We can't prevent or cure Alzheimer's at this time. We can't even slow the progression of the disease. Think about that fact. A disease affecting over 50 million people worldwide that we can't prevent or cure or keep from progressing, even after trying for more than 100 years. However, once we accept these facts, once we stop denying and fighting with the reality of what is, once we turn our energies to being safe persons and to give really good care, we're also going to discover that we can do something really important to heal our loved ones. We can help them and ourselves to heal by alleviating their emotional suffering. There's a vast difference between cure and healing. Cure is a medical term. Healing is a spiritual term. So, in spite of a terminal diagnosis that may feel hopelessly accompanied by lots of losses and all kinds of obstacles and challenges, we can really make a difference in the lives of people with Alzheimer's and dementia. We can help them heal through caregiving and hope. We go to workshops and conferences and presentations. Here you are. We read books, we watch videos, we listen to podcasts, all to learn about good caregiving. And we also try to implement various techniques to communicate and connect. But what about the hope part? Making a difference is how Czech author and statesman Václav Havel defines hope. Hope is believing that we can change things. Hope is believing that what we do makes a difference. A newspaper article about the police chief here in Dubuque, Iowa, where I currently live, brought me to a deeper understanding of Havel's definition of hope. When the chief announced his upcoming retirement, he was interviewed by a local reporter and shared one of his most memorable stories from his 30-year career in law enforcement. It was the face of a 16-year-old girl who was dying at the scene of a car crash. Chief Kim Wadding said, "I looked at her and she was just so scared. Sadly, it was obvious to him that the paramedics had done everything they could to save her, but they couldn't. And so Wadding decided to give this girl as much peace as he could. He locked eyes with her and he said, 'Just look at me. We're going to get through this. This is going to be okay. Just look at me.' He held her and they looked at each It's a face you never forget, Wadding said. And that's what keeps you going. Those few seconds of comfort. I felt that she felt it. At a dementia care conference in New England, one of the conference organizers came up to me after I shared this story and he said, I don't understand how this is hopeful. She died. Well, that's right, she died. But in her final moments, Chief Wadding made a difference in her life. He connected with her, he calmed her fear, he gave her peace. We could say that he alleviated her suffering. And unquestionably, this girl made a difference in Kim Wadding's life. Decades later, he is still telling their story. Whether we have minutes, as Officer Wadding did, or whether we have years, as we often do with our friends and family members who are living with dementia, we can be hope. We can make a difference in their lives. And if we let them, they can make a difference in our lives as well. There are various techniques for working with people with dementia that can make a difference on this journey. And the workshops that I've designed and led for the past 18 years teach caregivers about unique communication techniques, which have been shown through research conducted by the University of Iowa Neurology Department to significantly reduce caregiver stress, increase caregivers' feelings of competence and confidence, and improve the quality of life for caregivers as well as those living with Alzheimer's or dementia. Learning and implementing these techniques can definitely make a difference. And I describe a lot of these techniques in Where Two Worlds Touch. And I and my colleague Craig Price are currently developing an online format for this workshop. And when we're ready, I'll make sure that Reverend Jerry knows the details about this because you would all be welcome to join. But even before texts, there's a more important place for us to start our quest to make a difference in each other's lives. Dr. James Eller is the Director Emeritus of the Center for Gerontology Studies at Baylor University, and he tells us this. The first principle of working with a person who has Alzheimer's disease involves a value rather than a technique. I believe this, and I believe that you do too. Why else would you be attending this presentation? Giving your time and energy in order to learn more about what to expect, how to cope, how to be the best caregiver you can be. You believed that your loved ones, even though they are experiencing cognitive decline, have value, that their personhood, their humanity remains intact, that they deserve your kind attention and care, that how you treat them matters. Not everyone does, though. And here we can also make a difference by helping ourselves and others see more clearly. While we're trying to recognize and bring forth awareness about the value of the population of cognitively impaired people, a challenge that caregivers and advocates face is cultural conditioning, which in simple terms describes the ways that we are socialized to adopt certain ways of thinking and behaving. So here's where you'll need your paper and your pen for a demonstration of cultural conditioning. So I invite you to fill in the blank of this sentence. Don't shout it out or anything in the room. Just write it down on your paper. Ready? blondes have more blank. I can't see you, but for everybody else in the room, how many of you filled in that blank with the word fun? Just raise your hands. So like I said, I can't really see you. Nobody filled in fun? Few of you did. Yeah. Usually, thank you. Usually at presentations, 99% of the people fill in the word fun. This phrase was introduced when I was a child over 60 years ago as a commercial for Clairol hair dye. It's still alive and well and influencing younger generations even today. So let's do this again and fill in the blank with another word. Anything but fun. Blondes have more blank. So the most common responses that I've heard to this are things like boyfriends, cars, hair dye, friends, money, job opportunities. All of those responses are still within cultural conditioning, whereas being blonde brings benefits. So again, we want to use our imaginations to get out of the conditioning. So let's just try this again. And if you don't have paper, you can just think the word in your mind. Blondes have more blank. Anything. Again, blondes have more blank. What comes into your mind? Blondes have more blank. You know, for filling in this blank, I look around the room and I write down things like light bulbs, paper, picture frames, books, geese, hummingbirds. Whatever we see before us can actually spark our imaginations and interrupt the cultural conditioning. So, in addition to cultural conditioning around blondes, we also have been conditioned to resist and harshly judge aging and physical diminishments. In the US, we are not at all socialized to value the aging process, or those who are disabled or elderly, or especially those with cognitive brain change. At a conference in Illinois, I met a nursing home resident who demonstrated our cultural conditioning regarding people with dementia. After hearing my presentation, she said this to me: all this person centered care is well and good, but it doesn't matter how we treat them. They don't know the difference anyway. People often gasp when they hear that, and that's how I felt. This statement is completely false. I know it, you know it, but this aide believes what she said, and she carries her beliefs into her work with people with dementia, influencing her residents, their families, and her colleagues. Even closer to home for me were the words of a reporter, again from my local newspaper, the Telegraph Herald. He informed his readers that people with Alzheimer's are empty shells. And like the octogenarian Beach Boys, able to mount the stage, yet unable to present anything new. With one uninformed stroke of his pen, this reporter managed to insult people with Alzheimer's and the Beach Boys. As an advocate for people with Alzheimer's, I was deeply offended by these statements in the newspaper, and I wrote a letter to the editor correcting this cultural misconception. This is what we all need to do: enlighten ourselves, enlighten our communities, enlighten our society continuously about the inherent and remaining dignity and worth of these vulnerable members of our society. This is a major way that advocates and caregivers can work to enhance the quality of life for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. This is a way that we can make a difference. this is a way that we can be hope. In his newest book, Dignity for Deeply Forgetful People, Dr. Stephen Post writes about the dignity and worth of people with Alzheimer's and dementia and how they merit equal consideration in our shared humanity. And it's true. People with dementia do have dignity and worth, which everyone who really pays attention will recognize. I asked 50 professional caregivers, some of whom had cared for people with dementia for 10 to 15 years, how they would fill in this blank. People with Alzheimer's and dementia are. And here are some of their answers. Great teachers, just like everyone else, adorable, perceptive, lovable and loving, interesting, genuine, and sweet. These caregivers came close to people with dementia and stayed long enough with open minds and hearts to recognize their beauty, to discover their value, and to realize that they are indeed just like everyone else on the journey of life. They are just like you and me, adapting to the many challenges and changes we all encounter along the way, wanting to feel that we have worth, value, and dignity. Sometimes we need to work to notice and override our cultural conditioning. So I invite you to pause again for a moment and notice what first comes to your mind. No editing, please, when you fill in the blank of this sentence. People with Alzheimer's and dementia are blank. I will share with you that my first thought when I complete this sentence is forgetful. Even with all my positive experiences, I consciously have to notice, acknowledge, and remove that particular layer. And then I can get to loving, genuine, sweet, great teachers just like me. My mom helped me to get there. My mom also helped me to realize that in many ways, I am just like her. Let's think about that. We are just like people who have Alzheimer's and dementia. At the heart of the teachings of Pema Chodron, author and American Buddhist nun, is the belief that we are all alike. True compassion, she writes, does not come from wanting to help out those less fortunate than ourselves, but from realizing our kinship with all beings. We, all of us, are vulnerable and needy sometimes. We all will diminish. We all will suffer. This is certainly the truth we learn from every religious tradition. Let's just think about Christianity, for example. The cross. The cross is a worldwide universal symbol for suffering and change. So much of the Alzheimer's literature and programming focuses on what is lost and how to cope with that, without denying the losses, the changes, the challenges for both people with dementia and their families. My work focuses on what remains, on how we can notice this and access it in order to improve our communicating and connecting and enhance the quality of life for our loved ones and ourselves. We caregivers, both professionals and families, can also help society to see that although there are losses from Alzheimer's and dementia, so much of their humanity remains intact. You can see by this list that a lot remains. And this is the tip of the iceberg. You may want to be adding some of your own um, things that you've noticed in your own experience that remain. You can add those to your list. Here's an important point to know. Just because someone with Alzheimer's doesn't initiate something, say an activity they used to love to do, playing cards, for example, playing the piano, that doesn't mean that they can't or don't want to do this, but they can only initiate to the level of their current capacity. So we may need to draw them out. Here's an example of what I mean. Memory is a complex thing, and in the category of memory, there's quite a bit that remains for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. However, it's not necessarily in the cognitive part of the brain. This is a picture of body memory. This is Jim. He came to our local memory cafe with a group from the care center where he lived. He had lived in this care center for several months and was described as quiet. He stayed in his room. He didn't talk or engage with others, neither residents nor the staff. The presenter at the memory cafe that day was offering a praise service with music to match, hymns on YouTube by Elvis and Alan Jackson and various choirs. While the music was playing, I walked around the group. Everyone was sitting in a semicircle, and I took each person's hands and I made eye contact and I said, "Welcome." Jim, it seemed, thought I was asking him to dance. He stood up, put me into the dance hold, and I thought, okay, we're dancing. And around the floor we went. So don't be afraid to extend an invitation. There are techniques for doing this inviting, drawing out, that can increase successful outcomes, which I talk about in the book and in the workshops. But the most important factor for drawing out people with Alzheimer's is to respect them, to love them, to be kind, to value them, and to treat them as we want to be treated. The results of these invitations can be surprising, and they can create pure joy. You can see here, Jim definitely still has got the moves. Later, the care center staff told me about a significant difference in his behavior and his connection with others. Because now that they knew how to engage him, he danced every day. Some gifts and talents that people with dementia retain are yet to be discovered. This is a photo of a watercolor painting done by the father of a colleague of mine who lives in Alabama, Dr. Dan Potts. After Dan's father, Lester, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, his artistic talent flowed out during art therapy at an adult day center. Lester worked in a sawmill his whole life. He had never touched a paintbrush. This boat washed to shore is one of Dan's favorites. He felt a sense of hopefulness from the flowers growing in the wrecked and abandoned boat. This second painting is of Lester and his dear friend Albert. Lester wasn't speaking much at the time this painting was done, but he was still able to share his memories of who he was, who his friend was, and how they had enjoyed working together at the sawmill. As the disease progressed, Lester's paintings became more and more primitive, somewhat childlike. However, the image of his last painting was completely recognizable. It was a saw. I should also share that the collection of Lester's painting has been shown in galleries all around the world. In 2014, University of Iowa researcher Edmarie Guzman-Velez published her study about the retention of emotional memory in people with Alzheimer's. Her research shows us that although cognitive memory is lost, emotional memory is not. For example, a woman with Alzheimer's could become very happy during a visit with a family member, and she will remain happy long after you have gone and long after she has forgotten your visit. So please don't think that visits don't matter just because your loved ones can't cognitively remember that you've been there. Their hearts remember. The same is true for other emotions as well, such as anger, sadness, fear. Guzman Velez found that these emotions last even longer than the happy ones. So after forgetting has made them sad, or after they forget what has made them sad, the sadness will linger. This quote by poet Maya Angelou greeted me at the doorway to a dementia unit I toured in Lexington, Massachusetts. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Guzman Velez's research reveals that this observation by Angelou applies to all people, even those living with Alzheimer's. It tells us that people with Alzheimer's can still learn emotionally. For example, if an aide in the care center is unkind or angry, and a person with Alzheimer's feels afraid or hurt, they will remember that feeling the next time that aide appears. This is an example of emotional learning, which remains. So if at times you're wondering why your loved one is angry or sad or afraid or upset, something may have happened that you didn't witness. A scary TV program, for example, or an upsetting experience from the past may have been triggered. Other studies have shown that people with dementia lose the ability to process emotions, which is not surprising since this is a cognitive process. They also lose the ability to soothe themselves. So if they're upset in any way, we do need to learn how to intervene to soothe and comfort them. Because remember, these emotions will linger. And again, this kind of learning is taken up in greater detail in my book. But I want to return to hope. Earlier, I said that a part of the hopefulness on this journey with our loved ones is that people with dementia make a difference in lives. I experienced that myself. My mom made a difference in my life that was literally transforming. In 2007, after all the other members of my family had moved away from Dubuque, my mother, who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 6 years earlier, was alone there living in a care center. This life situation was heartbreaking for me, so I made plans to move from Boston to Iowa to be mom's companion and advocate. As I was preparing for the move, well-meaning friends and colleagues said to me, "I can't believe you would even consider disrupting your life and moving 1,000 miles away to take care of a person who much of the time doesn't even remember who you are." I replied, "Well, I remember who she is, and who she is needs me now more than ever before." What I also realized is that we belonged to each other. And that belonging for me was more important even than remembering or need. That belonging. Over the years I spent with mom, I realized that she also recognized our belonging, even though she probably didn't remember exactly who I was. So I moved in 2008. I thought I was making this huge sacrifice, leaving my career and my friends. So was I ever surprised to discover that this move turned out to be a great gift, not just for mom, but for me too. One of my cherished spiritual teachers, Benedictine and Zen monk David Stendal Rast, defines hope as being open to surprise. For nearly 4 years, I spent time with mom every day at that care center, which was now her home. One night, as I was walking over to see her shortly after I moved, I noticed a kind of lightness in my steps. I noticed that I was eager and enthusiastic on my mission to visit my mom. As I arrived at the door of the care center, I literally felt joyful. Whoa, I thought, this isn't the typical reaction of people visiting loved ones in nursing homes or care centers or dementia units. This isn't what I was expecting to feel. It took some reflection for me to be able to understand my joy. Believe me, I didn't get to joy by denying the realities of Alzheimer's, which, as you all know, involve diminishments, losses, challenges, hardships, sadness, powerlessness, and this is just to begin the list. I got to joy by embracing all of these realities, feeling my feelings, drying my tears, and then seeing what else I could see. As a spiritual director, I literally go through life looking for signs of God's presence everywhere I go. So, yes, I looked in that care center, what many in our society would refer to as a God-forsaken place. We might say that my mom's heart called out to my heart, that she called me there to share in her world, to be with her in her care center home. I didn't really want to go because I was like afraid of nursing homes. I was afraid to look at what my future might be. But she was alone. She needed me. We belonged to each other. So I answered this call from her and from God. It was a call to love. But what I found in that care center truly amazed me. Through my eyes that were looking for God, I was able to see clearly that people with Alzheimer's and other dementias still have so much potential. If we let them, they have the potential to inspire us, teach us, love us, heal us, amuse us, befriend us, calm us, touch us, energize us, enlighten us, empower us, forgive us, nurture us, open our hearts, bring out the best in us, bring meaning and purpose into our lives, and yes, bring us moments of joy. We may be surprised to realize that people with Alzheimer's still have the capacity to show us how to be humble and trusting and courageous and receptive, how to be authentically ourselves in this present moment. We may be surprised to discover that when we look beneath memory loss and the inability to reason or to care for themselves, people with Alzheimer's can and do reveal to us the true value of life, theirs and ours. In their ever remaining ability to freely give and receive love, ever remaining ability, they show us what it really means to be human. This last statement I made about people with Alzheimer's showing us what it means to be human might sound like a foreign concept to you, but it's not at all foreign to Dr. Arthur Kleinman. He believes that we are not born fully human. Imagine that. Although Arthur was a safe person for his wife Joan, he didn't learn how to take really good care of her in medical school or in the clinic. He learned the same ways I did. First, by opening his mind and heart fully to the realities of Alzheimer's and the meaning and purpose of his role as a caregiver. And second, he opened his soul to the spirit for guidance in getting through this. The result of his experience and his opening led him to conclude that Alzheimer's and dementia caregiving is a defining moral practice. Enlightened by his and Joan's many years of working in China, Kleinman cites an ancient Chinese perspective. He says, "We are not born fully human, but only become so as we cultivate ourselves and our relations with others." He believes that healing results from the practice of companioning people who are in great need, and that this act of companioning is the moral practice which makes us, caregivers and care receivers, more present and thereby more fully human. Caregiving, companioning, hope, being present. They are the building blocks of our humanity. After my mom died in January of 2011, I collaborated with a group of people to create the Healing Moments um, CD for Alzheimer's that's called Meeting Alzheimer's. One of the songs, I Opened My Heart, was written specifically for this resource. When we had a proof copy ready for review, I went to the songwriter's house so we could listen together. As I was leaving, she said to me, "You're a most unique combination of qualities. You're both really organized and really sweet." I paused for a minute, taking this in, and I replied with what was true for me. I used to just be organized. Caring for my mom made me sweet. I'm still very organized, but now, having experienced a whole different world with my mom and others with dementia, my preferred way of being is sweet and kind and present in the moment. Dr. Stephen Post, the author of The Moral Challenge of Alzheimer's Disease, that was his first book. He's also one of my most important mentors in this field. He bases his dementia care recommendations on the importance of being kind rather than right. As a profound teacher for me on this journey, he actually predicted my transformation. He wrote, "Dementia breaks into the previously routine lives of individuals and families like a tidal wave, disrupting everything in its path. The person with Alzheimer's is eventually swept away, while caregivers look back and feel forever changed by their experiences." Forever changed definitely describes me. For the better. It could happen for you too. Almost 3,000 years ago, the Hebrew prophet Isaiah encouraged people to see in new and different ways. For him, it was as simple and as hard as turning and seeing from a different perspective. Turn was his guidance. His predicted outcome from this turning was that we would be healed, healed from the act of seeing differently. So let's turn. Let's invite others to turn. And with our new perspectives about hope and healing, about the dignity and worth of people with Alzheimer's and dementia, we can start to change and heal ourselves, the lives of our loved ones, and we can even start to heal the world. We can make a difference. So I thank you for your kind listening, and I will stop sharing my screen, and I look forward to um, connecting with anyone who has comments or questions. And I'm so happy to be your companion on this journey. Oops, I lost myself now. Am I still there? Oh, yeah, good. Okay,
So
we're good. There we go. Hi,
you got the mic if you want for people to use that.
that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Okay. So who would like to make comment or 50 comments? Your response? Pretty warm. I have lots of tears in my eyes. Some of you did too, I'm sure.
I'll say hi.
Sure. Yeah.
Hi, Jade. It's Nicole. How are you?
Hi, Nicole.
Hi,
Nice to
Ellen.
see you.
Good to be here. Thank you so much.
So others would like to say words, comments? Would we want to go looking at the questions then, or the comments? Would that be too quick? Oh, Helen is here. They are.
Thank you so much, Jade. I think your presentation was unique in that you focused on the spiritual aspects. And similar to you, I took care of my mother for 8 years and had similar experiences. But I think sometimes we just think because cognitively they're not there. I remember one time my mother, she was kind of afraid, and she says to me, this was, I thought, a profound thing that she said. She said, when you're here, I have courage.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
It is.
Yeah,
So thank you
yeah,
for your aspect. I think it's a beautiful one.
yeah. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It is a very unique approach um, to the Alzheimer's journey. And like I said, as a spiritual director, that's my sole full focus on life is to be looking for God. Um, and in nursing homes could be like looking for God in all the wrong places, what people think. But um, when you're dealing with an incurable disease, which all the diseases of dementia are right now, where else is there to turn but to spirit, to find meaning and purpose in this journey that none of us asked for, um, but none of us can change. So I appreciate that comment so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Pam Chambers, and my husband and I had his dad who had vascular dementia, had his mother who had cognitive dementia from anesthesia when she was in her 80s. And then I had my mother who had, we think, Alzheimer's. Of course, she had dementia.
Mhm.
And bottom line is and it does, I have to agree with you, is it changes you forever. You go in and you try to, well, your purpose when you go and visit them, or my purpose was to always have something special to do with her that she enjoyed doing. Puzzles, doing her nails, brushing her hair, whatever she wanted to do. And so those are a lot, but it does change you forever.
Mhm. You, the fact that you went to the care center with an idea of something to do with your mom is is an idea to really impart to people because so many people go to care centers and they think they're gonna, like visit and talk. And that's really a challenge for people with Alzheimer's, particularly as the disease progresses. And so doing a simple activity, I mean, I love brushing my mom's hair too. That was really fun. We'd watch TV and I'd brush her hair. Um, but it's just your presence that's really important. It's your presence that's really important. And we try to create happy times. So trying to force a conversation can be difficult, but doing a simple activity. My mom and I used to play cards, and she would make up these rules, and I would try to figure out what she was doing. And it was kind of fun, but it didn't matter.
Hey, Nicole again. So for my mom, it's chocolate chip cookies. So we either go to Whole Foods and people watch and eat chocolate chip cookies, or I bring her a cookie. But I do want to ask, I don't know if you're familiar with the US Pointer study that came out, that they're saying there's now 14 lifestyle factors that can help prevent up to 45% of dementia. And it's the same, sleep, diet, exercise. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I do. I have a lot of thoughts about that. I first heard about the lifestyle interventions in 2009 at a conference, at an Alzheimer's Association conference in Boston. And so I've been a strong proponent of that ever since, because what I'm hearing from researchers here in Iowa is that they think it's going to be like healthy heart behaviors. You really can't, quote, cure heart disease, but you can change your lifestyle. And people who have heart attacks or they have heart issues, that's the invitation that they have. So healthy heart behaviors equals healthy brain behaviors. But they're also learning a lot now about like the chemicals that we're exposed to, the toxins that we're exposed to every day in the air, in our food, in the water, in like cleaning products, laundry products, all of those kinds of things. So there's good news. I feel like, Nicole, there's good news and there's bad news with that awareness. Is the good news is that maybe we can do something to prevent Alzheimer's. The bad news is that we have to do something. We have to change. And part of our culture conditioning has been that we expect to go into the doctor's office and say, hey, can you give me a pill for this? And so far, all those pills and all the research and the billions of dollars spent in developing some kind of pill hasn't worked. And so we're being invited to change our lifestyle. And like I said, good news, bad news.
It's okay. We got one here and then one here.
Hi, Jade. I'm Bob Kern.
Hi.
My wife is in a facility right now.
Mhm.
She has Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
My father had Alzheimer's. My mother had TIAs,
Okay.
and so they've all got dementia in one form or another.
Mhm.
But
Mm.
Hazel, my wife, started Alzheimer's probably 6 years ago. I recognized it with my dad. And Hazel now is at a point where she sometimes remembers me.
Mhm.
A month or so ago, she fell out of bed and she bumped her head.
Mhm.
And so I went to the hospital with her, followed the ambulance to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, they put her in a room in the I don't call it the waiting room, but it's just before you get to your own room. And we started talking. And that was a miracle. We got out of our environment that we are normally in, where I am at the house and I go to see her. And the first time I walk in the door, she says, "When are you taking me home?"
Right.
And with the hospital, we walked in there and suddenly she wasn't at her home and I wasn't at my home. And we didn't have that barrier between us. But it worked so beautifully
Yeah.
because we spent probably 6 or 7 hours, as you normally do in a hospital, just waiting for somebody to get off square one.
Right.
But that was the best day that I have had in now 10 months. And it's just, it's
Yeah.
so pleasant to have that. But I
Yeah.
walked back in the next day when she got back to the facility, and she lit into me like a bobcat.
Ah,
And she had no recollection of my having been there. You haven't come to see me in 3 months. And it was one day.
yeah.
But that's what
Wow.
we got. Oh, we got
Sorry,
some.
let's
Yeah.
let her comment.
Oh,
Go ahead and comment, Jade, if you would.
That's a really beautiful story. And whenever I've made presentations at support groups, and sometimes support groups, are filled with people talking about the hardships. And so I always let them do that for a while, but then I ask them to share a story like that, a story that filled you up or brought you joy or where you really connected to your loved one, because I think those are the stories that keep us going. Those are the stories that give us energy. And I think it's really important to be able to share those with each other as well. They're always very heartwarming and very touching. Yeah. Thank you for
thank
sharing that.
you.
Hi, Jade. This is Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
I'm going to move us into something more spiritual and intangible. I think when we have someone with Alzheimer's and dementia, we have a tendency to want to control and understand it all and make it make sense. Can you hear me okay?
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
3 times in the last 7 months, my husband, and just let me know if you've ever heard people talk about this experience, has known things that there is no way we could have known that that thing was happening. A friend was moving, and I had not even told him that this friend was moving. I had never even mentioned, he didn't, was a friend of, she's a friend of mine. He didn't really like her, so I didn't think there was any need to tell her that she was moving. And he said to me, so how's Karen's move going? Did she, and then he says, I saw her today and she's liking her new place. And I had no idea how he would have even known that this friend of mine was moving. And there was another time, and then just this last weekend, he kept talking about his cousin, and he kept saying, Gail needs to make a good decision about the house. And I'm like, what in the world is he talking about? Well, Gail is his cousin, and the cousin had a friend approach him about renting our house. So that's why Gail had to make a good decision about the house. Now, how he, and I got that phone call after I left my husband, and my husband doesn't even have a phone anymore, so how he would have even known that somebody was talking to Gail, his cousin, about our house. Do you ever have that experience that when they lose what we think their cognitive abilities, they gain another sense?
Well, I mean, so we can look at that example of Lester Potts. He lost his cognitive abilities and just
Yeah.
became an artist without any training, without any experience. But I think it does happen that sometimes the senses, well, that the right side of the brain becomes more um, pronounced when the left side is working less. So intuitively, that would make sense to me that intuition could increase because, I mean, people with dementia are very intuitive. Like they can sense feelings. You don't have to say, how you're feeling. They might know how you're feeling. Joanne Koenig Cost, who was an early pioneer in this field, she told a story about her husband with dementia who had while she was gone, he scraped all of um, the nonstick uh, off the pans, the nonstick coating off the pans. And she came home and she saw this and she was like, "What have you done?" And he was beaming and he was so happy that he did this. And he said, "I hope that's okay." And she said, "Yes, it's okay." And he said, "Are you mad?" And she said, "No, I'm not mad." And he said, "Well, your lips say no, but your eyes say yes, so they can sense the feelings that are going on. And that's something that's really important to understand, that they're going to be very, very intuitive. I've not heard stories like that before, Kathy, but I certainly would never discourage that in any way, because it sounds like it could be, it sounds like it is accurate. Mhm.
Hello, Jade. My name is Miriam.
Hi, Miriam.
Presentation so much. I've been to, I think, many, read lots of books, but yours that brings in new points that are just awesome. But I have to tell you a funny story.
Okay, thank you.
With vascular dementia. And we took the elevator in our building recently. And the first time I just hit the button and he looked a little, I never thought of him. So the next time he took it, he said, I'm driving now.
Oh,
That just warmed my heart. Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, it's those little stories, those moments that will totally warm our hearts forever. Forever, those are the stories we'll be telling.
Comments, questions? Yes.
I just have a question. This is Pam Chambers again. I have a question about the healing moments when that might come out. Do you have a
Oh,
timeline?
that workshop?
Yes.
That workshop, we're actually right now looking at February, and it's going to be an online class for 6 weeks for an hour and 15 minutes each session. Yeah, we've got it all pulled together, but we're just getting, all the approvals and everything now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll definitely let Jerry know.
So also, Jade is going to be with us again in January. I had already asked her to do that, so she'll be back with us at that time. And at that point, we'll have a lot more clarity about your schedule there for that.
We will have a lot more clarity about the class, and also that session that we're doing in January is kind of it's a little snapshot of what's in the workshop.
Okay. Kind of tools, is that what?
Yeah, exactly. I've kind of got it as like do's and don'ts.
Do's and don'ts,
This is
yeah.
the thing to do. This is don't do this. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, other comments, people want to make suggestions? How are we all feeling?
Great.
Jade sent a note. I just loved your note, that you sent email to me. She said, my hope is that there will be some healing that will happen today. So, it's our hope that this has been a time of healing. You now have an option if you'd like. And that is to spend some time in small groups talking together. This is something we had talked about before. So that's an option for you if you want. Jade, is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we sign you off and let you have your meal or whatever it is?
Yeah. I just want to let you know what a privilege it is for me to be with groups like this. And I'm just so, so happy that Jerry heard that podcast and reached out to me and that we were able to make this happen. So I thank you all for coming because you're what makes my work possible.
Very good.
And I wish you all the best. All
Thank
the
you.
best.
Thank you, Jade. Thank you.